A question I get asked a lot is about a balanced life. And I remember probably 30 plus years ago now, my mentor, Dan Pena, said that you have to figure out what success means for you, and super success ain't for everybody. And so you need to determine, what does your life look like? Write your obituary, write the story, write how important business is to you, write how important family is, and basically create the blueprint of what your life you want it to be. And super success in any venture really is not a balanced life. If you want to look at the Olympic athletes, do you think they had a balanced life in terms of their training? Absolutely not. And the same is true with business acquisition. You need to set how successful you want to be. For some people, that's one acquisition. For others, it's they want to build $1 billion company plus. And each of those requires different levels of commitment. And so a lot of people beat themselves up about why they aren't more successful or what they have to do to be more successful. And I remember a long time ago, Dan and I were giving a talk somewhere, and we talked about the sacrifices we had made, primarily sacrifices to the family, being at places to do a deal during anniversaries, during birthdays, during important times. And there are some people that fool themselves and say, well, I'm doing that so that later on I can spend more time. And maybe that's true. But what isn't true is you don't get that time back with your family. So when you make these decisions, make them and think about the consequences. One of the best things Dan ever said to me was think about what you are willing to give, the pay price to action for the success you think you want. And as things unfold, it will change what you have to give for that success and the amount of time and the amount of sacrifices. So there are people I work with. My marketing director is one that he has, since the time he opened his business, set goals on how he wants to spend time with his family, how much time that is, what he wants to do with them. And that's a very, very high priority in his life. Could he have been more financially successful, although he is financially successful? Yes, he could have. But that would have required him to say yes to opportunities that he said no to because his family was more important than what he wanted to do with that. We've all made sacrifices. I certainly have made sacrifices with respect to my family. Again, I'm okay with those, but some of those, I don't get that time back with them, and there were consequences for that. So what's important is what I want for my life, what my marketing director wants for his life. That is not your life. You decide. And I think one of the best ways, and I mentioned this in this video, write your obituary. Write the way it is today, and then write what you want it to be. And then say, is that a life worth living that I would be proud of? And then make sure that your actions are in support of that. So a balanced life depends on what you want. Talk to an Olympic athlete, you'll get a very different answer on a balanced life, or a very successful business person, you'll get a different answer. But a balanced life is possible as long as those goals match up with what you want. So I hope that helps. I hope that puts to bed. Don't beat yourself up. I ended up, the speech Dan and I gave that I talked about, a person came up to us afterwards and said, thanks. And thanks for what? And he said, I've been beating myself over why I wasn't more successful, and I'm not willing to make the sacrifices with respect to my family that you guys have. And so I'm done beating myself up. And both Dan and I considered that to be a success in terms of the message we imparted and what he wanted to do with his life and how that clarified things for him. So go through that same exercise for you, and you'll determine how successful you want to be. If business acquisition, you want to be at the top of your game, just understand what it is, the pay price to action you're going to have to give for that. And you determine if it's worth it. For me, those choices were worth it, but they're not worth it for everybody. Okay, hope that helps.